In America, over 2 million people will wake up behind bars today. Some are serving life sentences. Some are teenagers who made one terrible decision. Some will be released next year. And for many of them, it's just a matter of time before they come back. For more than 2 centuries, the United States has wrestled with one fundamental question. Is the purpose of prison to punish or to change people? Should justice hurt, acting as payback for the harm done? Or should justice heal, helping offenders rebuild their lives so they don't return to a life of crime? Tonight, we'll be exploring one of the most important and controversial debates in modern criminal justice. Does punishment actually work, or does rehabilitation work better? So how did we even get here? In the early days of the American justice system, prisons weren't designed for reform. They were designed for suffering and isolation. Think harsh labor, solitary confinement, and enforced silence. The belief was simple. If prison is miserable enough, people won't want to come back. But by the early 20th century, attitudes began to shift. Psychologists and reformers started asking a radical question.
What if crime isn't just evil? What if it's caused by poverty, trauma, addiction, or mental illness?
And just like that, prisons began introducing education, therapy, and job training. This was the birth of the rehabilitation model. But then, everything changed again in the 1970s and 80s. Rising crime rates created widespread fear, and politicians responded with a promise to be tough on crime. This led to mandatory minimum sentences, 3 strikes laws, and dramatically longer prison terms. America swung the pendulum hard back toward punishment, and the prison population exploded. Today, the U.S. imprisons more people than any other country on earth. But has it actually made us safer? Let's look at the case for punishment. Supporters argue that justice must achieve 3 main things. First, retribution. This is the idea of you did the crime, you do the time. It's rooted in a sense of moral balance. If someone causes harm, they deserve to face consequences. It's not about revenge, but about accountability. For victims and their families, punishment can represent a public acknowledgement of their suffering. Second, there's deterrence. The theory is simple. If the fear of a harsh, long prison sentence is great enough, others will think twice before committing a crime. Harsh penalties for things like armed robbery or drug trafficking are meant to send a clear message. Crime comes with a heavy price. And third, incapacitation. This is the most straightforward argument. Lock them up so they can't hurt anyone else. Even if prison doesn't change a person, it physically prevents them from committing more crimes out in the community. For violent offenders, this argument is especially powerful. But this raises a key question. Does punishment actually stop future crime, or does it just delay it? This brings us to what experts call the recidivism problem. In the United States, a staggering percentage of people released from prison are rearrested within just a few years. This cycle of returning to crime after being punished is called recidivism. And when you look at why, it starts to make sense. Many people leave prison with no job, no stable housing, and a criminal record that shuts countless doors. They might have untreated addiction or mental health issues that were never addressed inside. If punishment alone truly worked, we would expect prison to dramatically reduce repeat offenses. But for many, our prisons function more like a revolving door. This is where the case for rehabilitation comes in. Instead of asking, how do we make them suffer? Rehabilitation asks a different question. How do we make sure they don't come back? Rehabilitation programs are designed to tackle the root causes of criminal behavior. This often includes things like education, allowing someone to earn their GED or even take college courses. It involves job training in skilled trades like plumbing, carpentry, or even coding. It provides drug and alcohol treatment, mental health counseling, and therapy for things like anger management. The goal isn't just to punish, but to change behavior. This is crucial because the vast majority of people in prison will one day be released. And when they are, they become our neighbors. Let's imagine a story to see how these two paths play out. Picture two 19-year-olds, both arrested for the same crime, armed robbery. Person A goes to a prison focused only on punishment. He serves several years in a violent environment with little to no access to programs. When he's released, he has no diploma, no job skills, and untreated trauma from his time inside. Employers reject him because of his record. He is forced to return to the same neighborhood and circumstances that led him to crime in the first place. Within 2 years, he's arrested again. Now consider person B. He's sent to a facility with a focus on rehabilitation. While incarcerated, he earns his GED, completes a substance abuse treatment program, and learns a trade. Before his release, a reentry program helps him find a job and secure stable housing. His risk of reoffending drops dramatically. It was the same crime, but the system's response was completely different, leading to a very different future. The debate also comes down to cost. Incarceration is incredibly expensive. Housing a single inmate for 1 year can cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars. When people get caught in that revolving door of recidivism, taxpayers are funding a cycle that isn't actually solving the problem. Now, rehabilitation programs cost money, but study after study shows that they are a smart investment. By reducing the number of people who return to prison, these programs save society money in the long term. So this isn't just a moral debate, it's an economic one. And we can't forget the human side of this. Punishment doesn't just affect the person behind bars. It ripples outward. Children grow up without parents. Families fall into poverty. Entire communities lose workers, caregivers, and neighbors. Supporters of rehabilitation argue that by breaking the cycle of crime, we can heal entire generations. But critics raise a valid concern. Does focusing so much on rehabilitating offenders mean we re-ignoring the victims of their crimes? So what does the research actually suggest? Overwhelmingly, the data points in one direction. Education in prison is proven to lower reoffending rates. Drug treatment effectively reduces relapse in crime. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy can actually help change the patterns of criminal thinking. Meanwhile, there is very little evidence to suggest that simply making sentences longer does anything to reduce future crime once a person is released. This doesn't mean punishment has no role to play, especially for serious violent crimes. But the evidence is clear. Punishment alone is not enough. This whole debate isn't just about data and statistics. It's deeply emotional. For some, the idea of justice requires a tough, punitive response. If it's not harsh, it doesn't feel like justice at all. For others, a just society is measured by its safety and its ability to prevent future harm, not by the amount of suffering it inflicts. Both sides of this divide are driven by real fears, real pain, and deeply held values. So, is there a middle ground? Increasingly, experts are saying the answer isn't punishment versus rehabilitation. It's punishment and rehabilitation. We need accountability for the harm that was done, but we also need to provide the tools for genuine change. Innovative approaches like drug courts, mental health courts, and comprehensive reentry programs are all examples of this blended model in action. They hold people accountable while connecting them to the resources they need to succeed. Ultimately, this brings us back to the central question: what kind of justice do we want? The overwhelming majority of people in prison will one day return home. Do we want them to come back to our communities angry, broken, and potentially more dangerous? Or do we want them to return educated, treated, and ready to rebuild their lives as productive citizens? Punishment may satisfy our desire for justice in the past, but rehabilitation is what protects our future. Because in the end, the true measure of justice isn't how much pain we inflict, it's how much harm we prevent. Thanks for watching.